Hello, this is Akiko Sudano in StampinInTheMeadows.com, and thank you for joining me today. Okay, I'm all set now. I want to, today I'm going to make a card using this Back on Your Feet stamp set. And this has been, hi Amy, hi Chi, thank you so much for joining me today. This is a stamp set that's been around for a little bit of time, but this is my first time using it. It has got cute little animal images, and it's got some really, really nice sayings for, they're on puns, but they're good for get well cards or any other type of card to make people feel better. And hi Karen, thank you so much for joining me. This is the card that I made today, and this is my sample card, and I used the giraffe with his neck tied up in knots, and I love that little, this is not good, I love that little sentiment for the card. And I did some embossing, and I basically used the layout where you have two different panels, and just kind of make them askew from each other and lie them on top of it, and then I put a band in the back. Good morning from North Carolina, Kay. Thank you so much for joining me. Then I added the band of the in color DSP as well. And then on the inside, I stamped one of the sentiments. I stamped this one, and then I realized, oh, I think I wanted to stamp the other sentiment. So we'll fix that up for today's card. The hope, I wanted to use the hope things get better soon instead of the hope you're back on your feet soon sentiment. But we'll do that for the card. Now I've gone ahead and I've already stamped the giraffe in Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I cut it out with the third largest of the stitched rectangle dies. And so I'm going to go ahead and color this with the Stampin' Blends. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and start with the light cinnamon cider Stampin' Blend, and color, whoops, I'm going to use the other side. Color the spots with the light cinnamon cider, and just lightly color the spots, and then I'll come back and color the background afterwards. The colors in this card, I pretty much, other than deciding what colors to make the giraffe, I went with the Designer Series paper that I'm using for the offset panel, and I picked, since that was Granny Apple Green and Shaded Spruce, I decided to excuse me, I decided to make the embossed panel Granny Apple Green and make the card base Shaded Spruce. And since I used cinnamon cider for the spots, this is really a nice brown. I thought this this came out really, really nice. I decided to make the panel that goes across the back of it in cinnamon cider as well, so that it basically, yeah, everything is matchy-matchy, but it makes it easy. It makes it pretty easy once you decide, you know, a couple of colors. It makes it easy because you have so many options of things to use. That was a weird sound. So, and I'm not really using the Stampin' Blends, but I'm not really doing very much in terms of shading here, especially on the spots. It just filling it in with color. So then I used the actually, I think I'm going to use the petal pink first. I used the petal pink because I'm using the ivory for the back of the giraffe, but I want to use the petal pink for just a little bit on the inside of his ears. It doesn't show up very much, but it does provide a little bit of a contrast. So I think petal pink is, if you want to put rosy cheeks on something, on a little critter's face, or inside of especially like a bunny's ears, I think petal pink is a good color to use. So I decided to do that, and I also wanted to do his little horns in petal pink. So just use a little bit of that, and then the rest of the giraffe spotting, I'm using the ivory Stampin' Blend, and that gives that. I thought that gave a nice nice contrast here, a nice look. I tested out the light crumb cake, and I felt like the ivory was a little bit warmer, so I preferred that one. And the ivory is actually pretty dark. I think I think of ivory more of like a very vanilla, but it's actually pretty dark, but it's a good color, and I think it ends up being perfect for this little giraffe. And it colors pretty easy. And again, I'm not really doing very much blending, and I decided to really just use the black markings, because you get some shading and dimension from the line art, and I just decided to let's just leave it with that, and instead of trying to do too much of blending, because this is just a kind of a cartoon sort of character, so it's not like it is going to end up being, oops, I missed one of the spots right there on his neck. It's not like it ends up being really a lifelike rendition. Let me get that extra spot there. And then it goes pretty fast too. And I'm not going to do anything funky with his, to try to color in his, I'm going to leave his eye, and just go over his ear, at the top of his ear. But I'm going to leave his eye plain so that you can see the whites of his eye. And I'm not going to do anything with the hairs on the back of his neck or his tail. Although I think if you wanted to add some color there, you could do that. There. And he's all done. Oops, no. The giraffe is all done. But then I want to add a little bit of color on the bottom of the giraffe. Here, I'd watched somebody a long time ago, and they always said that it's good when you have things to just give them a little bit of shadow to ground them, so that it doesn't look like they're just floating in the air. And so that's what we're doing here. He's got a stamped ground thing, but if we just add a little bit of color, that will emphasize the grounding, so that it gives it a little bit more, just kind of a little bit more look, a little stronger, makes it a little stronger. Okay, so let me bring the card back here, and these are the elements of the card. So I think we're done with our with our coloring here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I already stamped the sentiment, and I cut it out with the little pennant die from the and this die is from the Tasteful Touches die. And so I'm going to just adhere this to the, I'm going to go ahead and try using my my Stampin' Seal, because that is, it's a smooth edge here, and I want to, and that this should hold it good. So I'm going to line the top of this up with the top of the card, and so it's like you got the stitching is kind of carried through, and I just need to make sure that that's straight and that looks pretty good. So press that down. There we go. That's good. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and attach this to, so that they're kind of off center like that, kind of going crooked, and just take a, I don't think, oh, it did get it. I'll add another one. See, that time I had to move it down. Just add a, oops, it's not going. Let me see. I think you want to roll it up so that you've got the sticky. There we go. And I always want to flick it sideways, but I think that's a bad thing. I have to flick it straight instead of on the angle. But anyway, so we'll adhere these together in such a way that I have a little bit showing on the bottom here, and the top really this side here, and then maybe more on the top there showing, so that it's just a little crooked. So that way, for me, that's really good, because I have such a hard time lining things up straight, and it gives you just a bit of a touch of the designer series paper behind it. This designer series paper is from the Forever Greenery designer series paper, and you can see that on the back it's got the watercolor leaves section. But that package of designer series paper is just so perfect, because you've got all of those realistic and watercolor images on one side, and then on the other side you've got the you've got these really funky kind of graphic images that are really really fun and nice, I think. So I think I'm going to adhere this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere the strip of the in color designer series paper to the embossed panel, and since this panel is embossed, I'm going to go ahead and use liquid glue to adhere that down. And I had done this in such a way that so that it's about 1.5 inches up, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll adhere this right here, and that will help me keep it straight. So also the liquid glue gives me a little bit of time to straighten the designer series paper, so to make sure that it's good. So then I'm going to also put the embossed panel, Granny Apple Green embossed panel, and adhere that to a shaded spruce card base, and I'm going to use the multi-purpose liquid glue for that as well, since it's embossed, so that it gives the glue some option to go into those embossed areas. And for this panel, I used the hammered metal embossing folder, but I think that this, and I use that because the designs kind of reminded me of the spots on a giraffe, but I think that this would also be very nice with the with any of the other embossing folders, like the subtle embossing folder would be really nice. That new textured textile embossing folder would be pretty as well. And I think also the woodland embossing folder, that would be another good choice if you didn't have those. So that's a good start on the card front. And then I decided to tie a bow using, this is the white ribbon from the Flowers for Every Season ribbon combo pack. And I was trying to figure out what color green ribbon. I was originally going to go with the green ribbon, but then I found this white one and I said, oh my goodness, this ribbon looks just like it's a bandage. And that kind of goes with the theme of get well. So I said, oh, that's perfect. And I guess the sloth image had a bandage and not the giraffe, but it's still, if you, you know, I don't know. I had kind of some mixed thoughts about whether this is strictly a get well card or if it's got other sorts of thoughts with it. And this is the funny thing about it, is this is the first time that I've used this ribbon, but this is really a nice ribbon. Let's see if we can make this knot here a little less funky looking. There we go. There we go. And yep, so I cut about 13 inches of ribbon there, and I tied it up. And let's make, this side is almost lined up with that there. And then we'll get that there. And then what we'll do is we'll adhere this guy on top of here, and we'll do that with dimensionals. So I'm going to just take a bunch of dimensionals and put on the back. Here. And then once we get the giraffe positioned, then we can trim the ribbon so that it'll be neater. And I want to put one more up there. I'll leave the middle section open, and actually it's not going to matter whether or not, because the ribbon is pretty thin. But that's a nice ribbon, and that's from the Flowers for Every Season ribbon pack. I've mostly been using the gingham ribbon in that pack, and then the Misty Moonlight and silver twine in that pack. But it's also got this pretty white one. There we go. And the nice thing about this kind of offset layout is that it doesn't need to really be straight. All right, so now we can trim our ribbon, and we'll just give it a go like this and this. Now on this sample card, I used the shaded spruce rhinestones from the Holiday Rhinestones pack, but then I realized that with the Flowers for Every Season, we have the those little dots, and they look pretty too. So I decided I'm going to go ahead for today's card. I'm going to accent it with those are not self-adhesive, so They're faceted gemstones, and I think you can use them. They would be good in like a shaker card, but I think they're the perfect color for this card because it's a lighter green, which goes real well with a granny apple green. I think the original color is like just jade, but it looks well. It goes well with that too. So, all right. So that's the outside of the card. Now let's get to work on the inside. So the inside, I'm going to just stamp the sentiment, and I'm going to stamp it in Granny Apple Green. So I'm going to line it up on my block, and I've used a oversized block. I'm going to hope that this technique works well, and I've lined the top of the block up my my grid paper here, and I'm lining up the words with the grid paper as well. So, and I'm doing it this way, upside down, and then I will ink it up, and oops, and then line up the top of the grid paper with the ink block, and things end up pretty smooth, pretty straight. So let's see if that technique works on my paper. So I've got my paper lined up here and line it up with the ink pad. And so that's one of the reasons for using the oversized ink block. Let's see here. Let's kind of, first I'm positioning the general in terms of how high I want this sentiment to be. And I'm looking to line up the ink, the stamp block with the grid paper and go down. And that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So the next thing is to add a strip of the Designer Series paper to the bottom. And let's go ahead and try this also with a Stampin' Seal. Okay, that's good. And line it up with the edge standing up, and there we go. And it looks like I've got just a little bit of white showing on the bottom there. I think that's, as long as it's okay. Trim off the edge. And we'll get some, you know what, that's fine. I'm going to use this again because I definitely need to practice with it. That was not good. Stay away from there. There we go. All right. I'll cover that up with a block so that I don't accidentally stick something on the sticky part there. And line this up. There we go. That's not too bad. That's good. Just a little bit of white showing from the bottom there, but that's all right. So there's our card today. Oh, did I get that? Hope things get better soon. This is not good, and I hope things get better soon. So that's our card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you also make good use out of this stamp set. Thank you so much, and you guys have a great week, and stay cool. Bye bye.